Stevie Nicks is one of the most celebrated women in rock, but her story has never been simple. For decades, she carried the image of the mystical frontwoman wrapped in lace and shawls, giving the world songs that defined entire generations. Yet behind the stage persona is a woman who has lived with heartbreak, addiction, and choices that altered the course of her life. At 76, the legend still sings, but the life she leads today is far removed from the untouchable icon fans once imagined. What remains is a story marked by resilience, but also by loss and sadness that time has only deepened from Phoenix to fame. Stevie Nicks was born on May 26, 1948 in Phoenix, Arizona into a family that rarely stayed in one place. Her father, Jess Nicks, worked in the food industry, moving the family from state to state, while her mother, Barbara, provided stability as a homemaker and teacher. Asthma kept young Stevie from sports or outdoor play, and instead she found refuge in music. Her closest bond was with her grandfather, A.J. Nicks, an amateur country singer who taught her how to sing from the heart. When he passed away when she was just 15, Stevie promised herself that music would keep his memory alive. At 16, her parents gave her a guitar. The instrument wasn't new, but to Stevie, it felt like a key to her future. She began writing songs, shyly performing at school gatherings. By the late 1960s, her path crossed again with Lindsey Buckingham at Menlo Atherton High School in California. Their voices blended with uncanny ease, planting the seed of a creative and romantic partnership that would later change rock history. Stevie initially studied communications at San Jose State College, hoping to become an English teacher, but she abandoned her academic path to pursue music. She worked odd jobs, waitressing, cleaning houses, and even scrubbing floors while writing songs with Buckingham. Their first real step came when they joined the band Fritz, opening for legends like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix between 1968 and 1971. Although Fritz never broke into mainstream success, the experience gave Stevie her first taste of the stage and a life lived for music. When Fritz disbanded in 1972, Stevie and Buckingham decided to go Allen, recording the Buckingham Nicks album in 1973. It flopped commercially, forcing Stevie back into part-time work to pay the bills. Yet, that same record would unexpectedly open the door to Fleetwood Mac, setting the stage for both triumph and tragedy. Fleetwood Mac and the Cost of Glory. In late 1974, destiny intervened. Mick Fleetwood, drummer of Fleetwood Mac, heard Frozen Love from Buckingham Nicks while at Sound City Studios. He invited Lindsey to join the band, but Buckingham insisted Stevie had to be included, too. By 1975, both were officially members, and what followed was a transformation that catapulted Fleetwood Mac into one of the biggest bands in the world. Their self-titled album Fleetwood Mac was released that same year with Stevie contributing songs like Rhiannon and Landslide. Both became instant classics, showcasing her mystical voice and gift for weaving storytelling into melody. By 1977, the band released Rumors, an album recorded amid personal chaos. Relationships within the group were collapsing. Stevie and Lindsey's romance disintegrated just as they were writing songs about each other. Dreams, written by Stevie in just one afternoon, became Fleetwood Mac's only Billboard Hot 100 #1 hit. Lindsey answered with the bitter anthem, Go Your Own Way. The irony of Rumors was that its very turmoil made it timeless. Fans heard the heartbreak in real time. Every lyric was a confession, every song a wound. The album went on to sell over 40 million copies. But behind the glittering success was a woman unraveling. Stevie was at the height of her fame, adored worldwide. Yet her private life was a storm. Her affair with Mick Fleetwood further complicated the fragile band dynamic, especially as he was still married. The band became a soap opera in motion. Its personal dramas feeding the music but cutting deep scars into Stevie's life. The pressure only grew in the years that followed. With Tusk in 1979 and non-stop touring, Stevie relied increasingly on cocaine to keep up with the demands of superstardom. She became trapped in a cycle of exhaustion and addiction. Her mystical image on stage, flowing shawls and spell-like movements, concealed the reality of a woman burning herself out to stay on top. Behind every ovation was the unspoken truth. Success had come at a devastating cost. Solo stardom and personal collapse. By the early 1980s, Stevie Nicks had become more than just a member of Fleetwood Mac. She was an icon in her own right. In 1981, she released her debut solo album, Belladonna. It entered the charts at #1, a feat almost unheard of for a woman in rock at the time. Songs like Edge of 17 and Stop Dragging My Heart Around with Tom Petty cemented her as a solo powerhouse. Belladonna proved Stevie could carry her own career while still holding her place in Fleetwood Mac. But behind the triumph, her personal life was spiraling. Her grueling schedule, Fleetwood Mac tours interspersed with solo projects, left her exhausted and increasingly dependent on drugs. Cocaine became her coping mechanism, a way to push through fatigue and fear. Doctors warned her that the cartilage in her nose had been severely damaged. She entered the Betty Ford Clinic in 1986, determined to break free, but what came next nearly destroyed her. Following rehab, a doctor prescribed her Klonopin, a tranquilizer meant to keep her stable. Instead, it dulled her spirit and stole nearly a decade of her life. Unlike cocaine, which had fueled her manic energy, Klonopin left her numb. She gained weight, withdrew from friends, and worst of all, stopped writing. For an artist whose very identity was built on transforming pain into music, the silence was devastating. Years later, Stevie admitted that Klonopin had destroyed me more than cocaine ever did. Her relationship suffered, too. In 1983, just months after her best friend, Robin Snyder, died of leukemia, Stevie married Robin's widower, Kim Anderson, believing it was the best way to care for Robin's newborn son. But grief is not the same as love. The marriage collapsed. After only 8 months, leaving Stevie haunted by regret. It was the biggest mistake of my life, she later confessed. Even as her solo albums, The Wild Heart and Rock a Little, kept her in the spotlight, Stevie was losing control privately. By the end of the decade, she had become a cautionary tale, an icon battling to save not just her career, but her very self. The 1990s, betrayals, silenced songs, and the fight for her voice. The 1990s brought both revival and heartbreak for Stevie Nicks. Though she was still seen as the mystical queen of rock, cracks in her career and personal life were more visible than ever. One of the deepest wounds went all the way back to the Rumors era. Stevie's song Silver Springs, a raw response to her breakup with Lindsey Buckingham, had been cut from the album in 1977. It was a decision she never forgave, one she saw as silencing her side of the story. For decades, Silver Springs remained a hidden gem, buried as a B-side, while Go Your Own Way, Buckingham's version of the breakup, dominated the airwaves. To Stevie, the exclusion symbolized how easily a woman's voice could be pushed aside. By 1997, fate gave her a chance at vindication. Fleetwood Mac reunited for the dance, and Stevie performed Silver Springs Live, locking eyes with Buckingham in a moment that fans still describe as electric. It was more than a song. It was a reclamation of power, a declaration that her voice would not be erased. The performance reignited interest in her career and reminded the world of her enduring strength, but the years leading up to that moment had been brutal. After leaving Fleetwood Mac in 1991, Stevie drifted into a period of near silence. Klonopin still had its grip on her, and she described those years as a fog in which she barely recognized herself. Her voice, once ethereal and commanding, had begun to falter. Decades of screaming over stage monitors without proper training had taken their toll. Critics noted the strain, some even questioning if her career was finished. Refusing to give in, Stevie made a pivotal choice in 1998. She began vocal training with coach Steve Rail, who introduced her to breathing exercises and vocal care she had never practiced before. It was humbling to start over after years of fame, but she committed herself to the work. Slowly, she rebuilt her strength. For the first time in years, she felt control over her own sound. The 1990s showed Stevie at her most vulnerable, facing the betrayal of her song's eraser, the damage of years lost to medication, and the terrifying possibility of losing her voice. Yet by the decade's end, she proved she could fight back, reclaiming not only her music, but also her sense of self, loss, isolation, and the weight of time. As the new millennium began, Stevie Nicks seemed to be entering a period of stability. Her 2001 solo album, Trouble in Shangri-La, reminded fans of her lyrical magic, and Fleetwood Mac's reunion tours continued to sell out arenas. Yet behind the applause, the weight of time and loss pressed heavily on her. In 2011, Stevie's mother, Barbara, passed away, and the loss changed her life in ways she never fully recovered from. Barbara had been her confidant, her anchor through years of chaos. Stevie later admitted she couldn't leave her house for months, paralyzed by grief. Instead of finding solace in companionship, she turned inward, filling her days with candles, journals, and private rituals. She described feeling her mother's presence still guiding her, whispering warnings about her health or nudging her through small decisions. What to outsiders looked like isolation, Stevie considered a form of spiritual connection, spiritual. But the most devastating blow came in 2022 with the death of Christine McVie, her closest friend and creative partner in Fleetwood Mac. Stevie called her my best friend in the whole world and admitted that with Christine gone, there was no reason for Fleetwood Mac to continue. Unlike past lineup changes, or bitter fights, this loss was final. The band, which had survived breakups, betrayals, and lawsuits could not survive without Christine's calming presence. For Stevie, it was the end of an era and the closing of a chapter she had carried for nearly 50 years. In recent years, she has faced criticism, too. In 2025, as she announced a new North American tour, fans erupted online over soaring ticket prices. Many who had followed her since the 1970s felt betrayed, accusing Stevie of prioritizing profit over connection. Old rumors resurfaced like her alleged refusal to play Glastonbury because of low pay, casting her not as a mystical icon but as a shrewd businesswoman. For those who had seen her as the embodiment of spiritual artistry, the controversy struck deep. Now in her mid-70s, Stevie lives a life defined by duality. On stage, she remains the queen of rock, still draped in lace and singing the songs that shaped generations. Offstage, she has grown increasingly private. Her world smaller, her circle tighter. Fame has given her everything, but also taken much. Friends, love, health, and the simplicity of being just a woman rather than a legend. The Ghost Record and the Final Chapter. At 76, Stevie Nicks is no longer the wild figure dancing endlessly across the stage, but she refuses to let her story end in silence. In April 2025, she announced The Ghost Record, her first solo album in 14 years. Unlike past works cloaked in metaphor and mysticism, this project is described as brutally direct. 7 autobiographical songs reflecting on the great men who passed through her life. For fans, it feels less like a comeback and more like a reckoning, a final act of honesty from a woman who has spent decades veiling her truths in lace. Hints of the album's tone surfaced when she jokingly told Jimmy Iovine during a live appearance, "You're next," sending her fan base into a frenzy of speculation. Was she preparing to name names? To finally confront Lindsey Buckingham, Mick Fleetwood, Don Henley, or Joe Walsh in song? The mystery has only fueled anticipation, but beneath the excitement lies something sadder. This may be Stevie's last unfiltered statement, a without second.